On today's show, notes from today's practice, including Martin Fehervary, who sat this one out, and Jakob Chychrun is on track for a career high in goals.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called The Capitals Minutecast, available wherever you find your podcasts. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about notes at today's practice. That there were some players that sat this one out, given the fact that they had a game the night before, and ultimately a good opportunity for some of them to freshen up a little bit, as it was a rough game against Boston. Later, I'll talk about one player in particular who sat this one out, and that is Martin Fehervary. What does that mean for Marty, and what does that mean for the Capitals blue line? A little bit later, I'll talk about Jakob Chychrun's impact on this year's Capitals team, and also a great opportunity for him to reach career highs in goal. And then later, I'll talk about looking ahead as the Capitals schedule coming up here. Well, they're not playing necessarily the hardest teams in the NHL. This would be a really great opportunity for them to rack up some points and really kind of run away with it. But just to get it going here, talking about notes from practice, as the Capitals are coming off a great win over the Boston Bruins. Positivity surrounds as this is January 1st. And before I get going here, Happy New Year. I'm glad to have all of you join me in this new year. It was a great 2024 season, and I hope that the Capitals can continue on their trajectory of truly great things. And hey, I think that this team is going to continue to surprise people this season. I think that they can run away with it. These players that were acquired by trade, free agency, whatever the case, they're really taking this team to the next level. And some players that were already on this team are reaching career highs. Connor McMichael comes to mind. Tom Wilson having a breakout season, not to mention Logan Thompson, a great addition. There is a lot to love. But notes from today's practice, the comings and goings on this team, and what took place at today's practice. Alex Ovechkin, as we know, made his return, and he was at practice getting in some work. And all things considered, off to a great start. There was a lot of questions about what kind of Alex Ovechkin we would see when we saw him return from that lower leg injury. Was there going to be a bit of a lag there, or was he going to hit the ground running? All things considered, he has looked very, very well. But today he was joined by some of his teammates, including Protas, Duhaime, Miroshnichenko, Eller, Vrana, McElrath, Alex Alexiev, and Charlie Lindgren. And you take a look at it. So you take a look at the players that were in attendance there. Some of those were starters. Some of those were players I think that we're looking in to get some extra work. I'm taking a look here primarily at McElrath, Alexiev, and, well, I guess Jakob Vrana as well. But a good opportunity for some of these guys that maybe need to work on their game a little bit. Just take it so they're fresh, because, and I'll talk about a little bit later, Martin Fehervary and how he had to sit out today's practice. What is that going to mean for him in the lineup versus the Wild, or is that going to present an opportunity for Dylan McElrath or Alex Alexiev? Let's be honest here, Alexiev has quite a bit of rust on him, so that was good to see him in at practice today. So unfortunately, not everyone could participate fully. Martin Fehervary sat out due to an unfortunate high stick incident from Tom Wilson, as we remember. And isn't that a bit of an interesting thing? There's some friendly fire that injured Martin Fehervary, and he went down to the ice in a hurry. And Tom Wilson was very apologetic and felt horrible about the whole incident. Of course, not a deliberate thing, but, kind of draws into question a little bit about safety, these high hits to the face. That you see Tom Wilson wearing that bubble, that aquarium up front. We remember what happened with Carl Hagelin. And I don't want to preach on that too much, but it's kind of my stance that maybe they should take a look at, more substantial, face coverings, these kind of things. I don't know the extent of Martin Fehervary's incident other than it was a high stick incident. But you take a look at it just historically, like I mentioned there, what happened to Tom Wilson, what happened to Darcy Kemper when he was playing with the Avalanche, that kind of thing, that I think that would be best. Sometimes it has actually ruined a player's career. Carl Hagelin comes to mind. So all things to consider then. But as far as Martin Fehervary is concerned, he's been labeled day to day and will be reevaluated Thursday morning. Of course, we are hoping that he is going to be good to go, as he is a key piece to the Capitals' blue line, is a guy that can throw his body around, gets in a lot of hits, a sound defenseman. I ultimately love Marty's game, and I think the Capitals' blue line plays that much better when he is in the mix. So keep your fingers crossed that Martin Fehervary will be good to go. But taking a look at the Capitals, they're gearing up for a home game against the Minnesota Wild. And I'll talk a little bit later about points and how everything is shaken out. But if you want to know what kind of team the Minnesota Wild is this year, if you're not too familiar, they are in second place in the Central Division with 50 points, with the Winnipeg Jets up in front of the Central Division with 55 points. I don't think that anyone really saw that coming, but in any event, they are really kind of running away with it there in the Central. So I think the Capitals will have their work cut out for them, as the Minnesota Wild are doing pretty well this year. And with 50 points, I think that I don't think the Capitals will want to underestimate them, as they have some firepower, offensive firepower on that team. And just even if they didn't, I think the big thing is to take every opponent that's ahead of you very seriously, as I think the Capitals have fallen into that category before, where they played the Blackhawks or maybe the Detroit Red Wings, and they thought, well, this is going to be an easy one. We want to take that Minnesota team very seriously. Now, this matchup is especially exciting, of course, because Ovechkin's last time against facing a veteran Marc-Andre Fleury. As you know, there is quite a history between Ovi and Marc-Andre Fleury, going all the way back to his days with the Pittsburgh Penguins. But we don't know if it's going to be Andre Fleury in there. It could be the backup as well, who, if memory serves, is Gustafsson this year. So I guess it remains to be seen. But as we take a look into this 2025 season, the Caps are looking strong. Again, I don't hate to say it. I actually love to say it. I just don't want you guys sick of hearing this, but I take great joy and pride in this team, that they are doing something that little to no one in the NHL saw coming. I'm talking beat writers for the Capitals. I'm talking about these premier insiders that nobody saw this coming. And I think that this team is going to surprise a lot of people. Again, I'm not going to etch their name on the side of the Stanley Cup, but it is exciting. They are currently sitting atop the Eastern Conference with an impressive record of 25 wins, 10 losses, and 2 overtime losses. So impressive. As we take a look at the Capitals reigning supreme right now, that they are in first place in the Metro Division, but also in first place in the Eastern Conference with 52 points. Second best of that is the New Jersey Devils that are right at their heels with 51. So a great opportunity for the Capitals to make hay while the sun shines, as they say. But all things considered, the Capitals starting this season are in an excellent position. As far as notes from practice are concerned, not a whole lot of surprises there. I did think it was going to be sparsely attended, just given the fact that it's New Year's. There was a game the night before, but good that some of these players that need to get in some extra work can get that done, and some question marks that surround Martin Fehervary. And of course, I will have you guys covered the entire way. Make sure and subscribe or follow Locked On Capitals on YouTube, as I do those midday updates throughout the week, so you can be first in the know when it comes to the Capitals. All right, so coming up here after the break, we will talk about Jakob Chychrun's impact on this season. Still considered one of the great achievements by former GM Brian McClellan that the Capitals were able to trade for and acquire Jakob Chychrun for Jensen and a draft pick. How did he get it done, and what has he meant for this year's Capitals team? I'll discuss next. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. One of my favorite memories was attending a concert last year. The energy and excitement were unforgettable. Those great moments at concerts or live events, and a lot of those are made a lot easier thanks to Game Time. Now, Game Time has made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature called the Game Time Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And that's the frustrating part. Your favorite concert is coming to town, or your favorite sports team's playing. What is the view of the stage going to look like? What is the view of the playing surface going to look like? Game Time takes a lot of that guesswork out of buying these tickets. So do that. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team. Every day you can follow me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. So one of the highlights of this season already is Jakob Chychrun, and what a key contributor he has been to this team. And sometimes blue liners, they don't get too involved in the offensive production. Jakob Chychrun does, and has been a key contributor for this team. Not only defensively, offensively, the best of both worlds. And the best part of all of this is the Capitals only had to give up Jensen and a draft pick to the Senators. Now, all things considered, talking to some of the people that cover the Senators, Jensen has been a good fit. And to be honest with you, I am most happy for Jensen and the Senators. Live long and prosper. I guess I don't care too much, but I'm happy for them. And I'm ultimately more happy about the fact that the Capitals are playing very well, and they're doing that in large part with the production of Jakob Chychrun. And also, he is on pace for a career high in goals. Things are going well in the world of Jakob Chychrun. Now, today we're diving into that. The impact of Jakob Chychrun, who was acquired over the summer. His offensive prowess has really been a game changer. You knew that the Capitals were looking to boost their blue line. That was something that was apparent. What did they do? They added Matt Roy, 6-year deal. They added Jakob Chychrun, who is going to require a new deal if we want to talk about him in, the long-term plans of this team. And it's no surprise the Capitals are currently atop of the Eastern Conference standings. Now, where he was huge in a recent game here, let's talk about, most recently here against the Boston Bruins. Chychrun clinched the game-winning goal on a power play, marking his 11th goal of this season. That ties him with NHL Cale Makar, Zach Werenski for the most goals amongst defensemen. Impressive considering he's done it 5 or fewer games with over 200 fewer minutes logged. And, I started this season saying to myself, I don't want to be too thirsty. I don't want to be too eager to sign him to a long-term deal, because I know it's not going to come cheap. That if the Capitals are serious about Jakob Chychrun on this team in the long term, they are going to need to back up the Brinks truck to his house. You take a look at what Cale Makar and Zach Werenski make. Well, you got to kind of factor in it's going to be something on par to what those players are getting paid. And a lot of questions. The Capitals want to keep LT. They want to keep Charlie Lindgren. It's going to be complicated, but at the end of the day, he has been huge for this team. So talking about key moments of the game, the power play goal came just 15 seconds after that high-sticking penalty on Mark Kastelik. And Chychrun's shot from the right circle was money. Critical moment in the game, and so exciting. His shot is so intense. And I think that if you wanted to question that, maybe you could ask Tom Wilson, who is wearing an aquarium because of that. And after that, it was all quiet until Alexei Protas sealed the deal with an empty netter. So you take a look at it. It was Protas. It was Chychrun. They were the key pieces in the Capitals' most recent victory. And Spencer Carberry also has emphasized how pivotal Chychrun's goal was in swinging the momentum our way. And that's one of the things that I spoke about in yesterday's show, is that the Bruins were really throwing the kitchen sink at the Capitals in the latter part of the game, that they were having to lay themselves out, sacrifice the body. And it's a good thing that Jakob Chychrun was able to find twine. Now, Carberry does like his game, much like the rest of us, who highlighted how well the summer acquisition has blended into the team. The camaraderie among the players is noticeable, and it's evident that teamwork is a top priority for this group. And that's the one thing I guess I'm going to say is most apparent. And, sometimes I talk about on the show things that aren't as easily quantifiable. Team chemistry is something that you're not going to see on the back of a player's hockey card or on some advanced metric website. But I think the chemistry within the locker room with players like Chychrun and Pierre-Luc Dubois, not to mention the players that have been here quite some time, Wilson, Ovechkin, Carlson, these kind of guys, I think that is something that you couldn't plan for. You see that all around sports, that they bring in big players and sometimes they lock horns, kind of see PLD with the Kings, for example. It's just a good feeling that everything is working out on a lot of different aspects for the Capitals, whether it's how Chychrun is playing on the ice and how he's blending with the players, quite something. But the biggest thing, the icing on the cake, and I know that he is a defenseman, so he should pride himself, I guess, in defensive metrics more than anything. But I'm not going to hold that against him. I guess I'm going to say I'm quite impressed with what kind of offensive numbers he's put up. Chychrun is on pace for a career high 26 goals and 60 points. And that's thanks to his confidence and focus on making those impactful plays. And, that was one of the things, kind of the knock on when he went out to the Senators, is it wasn't a perfect match. And the Ottawa Senators were, I guess I'm going to say, a bit of a team in transition that I don't necessarily think that it was a perfect match. Maybe a bit of a square peg in a round hole. You got to think, though, that Jakob Chychrun and the numbers that he's putting up, that he's got to be happy playing here. And I think that, he looks happy when he's on the bench. He looks happy when he's around his fellow players. I think at the end of the day, it's just, are we willing to pay the man? Now, Chychrun has jumped around between 3 different teams over the past 3 seasons. And that was, some of the questions that people had, and some of the questions that former GM Brian McClellan had, for that example. And Chris Patrick mentioned it as much as, let's see how he fits in Washington. How do we like him? But also equally important in that equation, the flip side of that coin, is how much does Jakob like playing for the Capitals? But he's found a really supportive environment with the team. He's really embraced the team culture and is excited about the positive start of the season. So that is the question, is what kind of season does he have? If there is anything to be concerned about, and I know any player can get injured, is that he was injured and missed some time, and then missed a shift or two in another game after that, is that can he stay healthy? Because as much as I'm drinking the Chychrun Kool-Aid right now, if he got injured and missed a substantial amount of time, or say that this all came to a halt, sometimes that happens kind of inexplicably, that a player's offensive production dries up. That could change everything, but it's a pretty good sample size, and I feel fairly confident that we are getting a full 30,000-foot view of what kind of player Jakob Chychrun is. And from what I've seen, I really like his game. And I know as Capitals fans, you're liking his game as well. So that's the big thing, is that the Capitals, they are playing well, and that's due in large part to this team working as a cohesive unit. And that big piece, one of the biggest pieces, is Jakob Chychrun, like I mentioned earlier, who is on on pace for a career high in goals. So quite a statement about what the Capitals have assembled. And you take a look at it, it's something that I don't know if, Brian McClellan really knew that what he was doing was so genius level, if you will. But it has been just that, because these moves that were dubbed risky moves by Brian McClellan have really paid off. Even though the insiders that said, oh my God, PLD, the Capitals struggled, that's what's going to fix it. Mangiapane, well, he hasn't really been that same player that he was. He's trying to find his former glory from a few years ago. And LT, well, I mean, take a look at him. They got him for under $1 million. How good could he be from the Golden Knights? That this team is proving all of the skeptics wrong. The one thing to consider, to put a bow on this segment, is Chychrun has been huge. But one of the things to kind of bookmark in your mind was in the post-game presser from Spencer Carberry, saying that some of the things that worked earlier in the season aren't working now. What are those things? Are any of those things that need to be concerned about? I think that as long as Spencer Carberry's behind the bench, pushing the buttons, properly utilizing the players like Jakob Chychrun, that all will be good. But something to monitor, if you will. When you're watching the game, think to yourself, what are those things that Spencer Carberry was referencing? I think that, like I say, with this current lineup, they are built to weather any storm. They did it without their captain, Alex Ovechkin, who is going to be the greatest goal scorer of all time. I think with players like Jakob Chychrun, they can do just that. All right, so coming up here after the break, we're going to look ahead, take a look at the schedule, take a look at the standings, and how the Capitals could really gain some ground. I mean, they're already in first place. What more could we ask for? Oh no, I am not content. I want them to rack up as much points as humanly as possible. I'll talk about it next. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get on the regular season action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. FanDuel has so many ways for you to pick up a W. I love betting on which players will score a touchdown and how many points each team will score. It's so thrilling. And as we are getting closer and closer to the end of the regular season, if you want to have a vested interest in all of the games, maybe your team is already out of the mix, but you still want to be interested in these games, open up the FanDuel app, put a little bit of money on those games. All of a sudden, they got that much more exciting. So just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. The best way that you can help grow this show is to subscribe or follow Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment, subscribe, all of those things. It really helps grow the channel. All right, in this next segment here, we're going to talk about looking ahead. As we know, the Capitals are due to face the Minnesota Wild. And like I talked about in the first segment, it's a pretty good team. Are the Capitals better? Well, I'd sure like to think so, that it is going to be an interesting test of this team, as they are, well, one of the better teams in the league. Like I said, if you want a refresher about how things stack up, the Minnesota Wild currently are in second place in the Central Division with 50 points. As a reference, the Capitals, who are atop of the Metro and, well, the Eastern Conference, have 52 points. So as we take a look at the lay of the land here, the Capitals in first place, 52 points. The New Jersey Devils with 51. That's kind of where it's at. I mean, down from there, the Hurricanes are 56, and then it goes all the way down to the Pens, 39, Jackets 38, Flyers 38, Islanders 35, and New York Rangers 33 points. Sorry, not sorry. So taking a look at it, the Capitals could really, stick it to the other teams in the Metro, because the Devils, under the tutelage of Sheldon Keefe and the great offensive firepower that they have, Well, if the Capitals, sat on their laurels and say they went on a losing streak, well, the Devils could be in first place. Hurricanes are also in that mix. There is a lot of offensive firepower on that team as well. With Rod Brindamore, one of the great coaches in the NHL, he is going to get the best out of the team. As far as the other teams are concerned, I'm not going to count them out, but as far as the Penguins, the Jackets, this kind of thing, unless they really turned it on and the Capitals, the Devils, the Hurricanes fell totally flat on their face, the Capitals could really just run away with it. And we could already be talking about the postseason. And like I said, it's not just the Metro, 52 points, the best in the Atlantic. The other team in the top of the Eastern Conference is the Maple Leafs with 48 points, with the Panthers with 48 points as well. How good does it feel to be on top in this situation? I am absolutely loving it. So let's take a look at the schedule and kind of plan out wins and, well, maybe potential losses. And are there any losses? So I think the Capitals taking on the Wild tomorrow is going to be a tough one. It is going to be a home game, and historically it's kind of gone back and forth. But I do think the Capitals have what it takes. I really do. So what is the next game after that? The Rangers. The Rangers now. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Stop the clock here a little bit. What I'm going to go ahead and say about the whole thing here with the Rangers is, okay, they're playing horrible. Peter Laviolette he's got to be not even sitting on his seat anymore. It's got to be so hot that, there's a lot of questions there. But that could be a game the Capitals could easily fall into as a trap game. You have to know for sure, that the Rangers are going to do their absolute level best to do whatever it takes to win that game, because I think that they know their postseason ambitions are out of it. But I think that it is a dumpster fire that the Capitals do not want to get involved in. And what I'm saying is not to play down to them, to think that, hey, you guys aren't that good. They still have a lot of truly great players on that team. So then Monday, they're taking on the Sabres. And if we take a look at the standings there and how everything is stacking up, well, the Sabres are in last place in the Atlantic. So on paper, that should be a slam dunk. You are playing the Rangers, last place in the Metro. The Sabres, who are in last place in the Atlantic. Again, on paper, the Capitals could really start to gain a lot of ground. A whole lot of excitement surrounds this team, and it's just a really positive thing to take a look at. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. After that, though, they take on the Canucks, who, let's take a look at where they're at. They've kind of bounced a little bit. They currently sit in fifth place in the Pacific, so 42 points for them. But again, on paper, these should be easy games, or wins, shall we say. If I'm going to pick one loss in all of those games, I would say, even though I said the Wild, if I had to, if you're going to give me just, gun to the head and answer, I'm going to say the Minnesota Wild, just based on their numbers. Now, it's kind of skewed a little bit, as sometimes the Capitals play well against teams that are kind of on par or better than that. So the other team that kind of gives the Capitals fits is the Buffalo Sabres. It's funny, last place, but I do think that is a possibility of a game that the Capitals could drop. And I know you take a look at it, they've had some luck against the Buffalo Sabres here, but still, historically, it is a team that has given the Capitals a bit of hard time there. So again, I don't want to go too far ahead of that, but all things considered, this Capitals team is in a really good position. And just to take a look at the back of the team's hockey card, as we kind of get a state of the state address for this year's team, Alex Ovechkin, 17 goals on the season. Ovechkin has career 870 goals, chasing down 895. Do I think that he could catch Gretzky this season? I do. I really do think that he can, but I know that it is not going to be an easy thing. Can he stay healthy? Those are the biggest things to look at. And some of those things you can plan for. He could get injured. He's 39 years old, and sometimes you don't heal as quick as you once did. But I'm not going to go down a negative rabbit hole. I'm going to think that he is going to catch Gretzky this year? I'm going to go ahead and say it's probably going to be probably mid-March, maybe April-ish. I know that it's spitballing, but at the end of the day, unless you're entering it into AI, that's all you can do. Another player that has really grown by leaps and bounds this season, I really like this kid a lot, is Connor McMichael. 16 goals. 16 big boy goals in the NHL, really coming into his own. So you take a look at him last year, 18 goals, but that was in 80 games. Through 37 games, he has 16 goals. Those are the highlight stories of this year so far. Alexei Protas as well. You would talk about Protas in the last game in particular, putting up 2 goals, even though, one of them was an empty netter. Again, we got to kind of move past that. There is no empty net goal shaming here. He has put up 16 goals in 37 games, and for him, well, that is a career high. Take a look at him last year. That's what I'm talking about. An absolute about face in a good way for Alexei. So this season, 16 goals, 37 games. Last year, 6 goals in 78 games. And what has changed? It's confidence, but I also think it's, the Capitals surrounding him, Spencer Carberry surrounding him with players that are bringing out the most from these players. Proof's in the pudding. Connor McMichael, great season, record-setting season for him, potentially. Alexei Protas, that's where this team is at. That is why I think this team is truly built to weather any storm. Excitement abounds this team, Capitals fans, that there is a lot to be excited about. You take a look at the blue line, like I talked about Chychrun, who has been absolute money for this team, and Logan Thompson. Both Logan and Charlie have played well, but Logan Thompson, 19 games played. He has a 15-win, 2-loss, and 2 overtime loss record. Charlie Lindgren, 18, 10, and 0. So 10, 8, and 0 record. So a lot to like. Logan Thompson, 15, 2 and 2, and Charlie Lindgren, 10, 8, and 0. That things are running well on all the different levels for the Capitals. And then there's the players on the outside looking in. When Sonny Milano makes his return, what kind of impact and where's he going to fit in? Alexiev, McElrath, are these guys going to get their opportunities? A lot to be excited about. So as Capitals fans, this is January 1st or 2nd, depending on when you're listening to this, there is a lot to love about this year's team. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Washington Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that are listening on the audio side and watching this on YouTube. You are what makes this show successful. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.